Welcome to you to this edition of ChadderBox Live. We're here with Debbie Reed. She's the president and CEO of ChadderBox that is here in Quincy. She's also a co-author along with another ChadderBox employee, and that's Karen Doyle Buckwalter. And your book, Raising the Challenging Child, How to Minimize Meltdowns, Reduce Conflict, and Increase Cooperation. As a parent, you sold me. So, what's the premise of this book?
This is a general parenting book. You know, parents might look at the title and think, well, my child isn't a challenging child, but every child has challenging moments. And we really wanted to write this book because in our organization, we work with some of the toughest kids in the country, struggling with attachment and trauma issues. We work with their families. But over time, as our staff were volunteering in the community with sports teams or youth groups or 4-H clubs, as they had their own children, we were hearing more and more these same strategies that we work with some of the most challenging kids also work with any parent-child relationship. So if we can provide more tools to parents so that they can strengthen their relationship with their child, you know, the end goal would be we would love to work ourselves out of a job at ChadderBox.
That's a great way to put it.
And so we want to go upstream, not just wait until kids need our services, but provide support to parents, any parent, grandparent, anyone who works with kids. If some of these tools can help strengthen those relationships, that's a win in our book.
How do you classify a challenging child?
Again, it's, you know, we have great plans as parents of I'm going to do this and my child is going to do this. And it doesn't always work out quite the way we plan. And even a parent with multiple children, what worked for one child isn't going to work for the other. And so it is really, what do you do when your toddler is having a tantrum?
And they all do.
They all do. What do you do when your teenager is being pretty snarky with you? And so overall, they may be a great kid, but how do you really go into those challenging moments with strategies that are going to minimize the conflict while still keeping that structure and keeping you as a parent in charge without getting too heavy-handed, which oftentimes backfires anyway.
Sure, and then everybody's upset.
Absolutely.
You know, if you've lost your temper, and we've all done it, right? So when you look at again, challenging children, you could have some that, to some, like you said, maybe emotional attachment issues could be a challenge, but others, you know, there's anxiety, there's depression. Maybe there's just somebody who's had a bad week. Like, at what point do you go, I should pick up this book and give it a read? You
know, don't wait until that moment. Okay. I think anyone who works with kids, be it a parent, a grandparent, a Sunday school teacher, a school teacher, these are preemptive tools so that you don't get to that point.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. One of the lessons is invest in the relationship bank. If you think of your relationship with your child as a bank account, you can make deposits in that account. That's things like spending time with them, thanking them for something they're doing, even if it's something you expect. Thanks for making your bed. Thanks for putting your dishes in the dishwasher. It is recognizing something special about them. All of those things build deposits. They strengthen that relationship. Now, as a parent, you are going to have to make withdrawals at some point. You're going to have to set limits, say no. You may not be able to drop everything at the moment your child wants you to. But if you have a good amount of deposits, you're not going to overdraw that bank account. And so when you have to set structure, set limits, the child can accept that much more easy because they have that strong relationship bank.
So you get that as an adult. Does the child understand the concept of the bank?
You know, it doesn't really matter if they do or if they don't. This is what you're doing as a parent.
Gotcha.
And, you know, we've had some comments of like, you know, I thought this was going to, like, tell me, you know, what to get my child to do. It's really about how can you change your behavior as the adult, not to give in, not to be a doormat, but if you can say something slightly differently, present something slightly differently, it can make a huge difference in really helping your child learn how to negotiate their own relationships.
It's almost like when we do news stories and stuff on like Fire Safety Week, and the firefighters always say, like, we teach the kids so they go home and teach the parents. This is like the opposite. Let's teach the parents and then reflect it to the kids.
Absolutely.
And like you just said, then it's reciprocal as they grow up to be adults. kids learn those things.
Absolutely. You know, one example of that is, you know, one of the concepts is share power to get power. You know, sometimes people think, okay, I've got to set the limits. I have to be firm. You know, if I negotiate or, you know, work with my child on change, I'm giving in. No, you're not, because you as the parent still control your non-negotiables. What you're doing when it's a deposit when you listen to your child and try to understand their perspective. And when you help them learn how to try to come up with a win-win. Okay, I know this is mom or dad's requirement. Is there a way that I can meet that and still get what I want? You're teaching them how to negotiate and give and take in relationships that will benefit them through their entire life. And so when I allow you as a child to try, or a teenager, to try to come up with a solution that's a win-win, where's the downside in that? I have still, as a parent, maintained the standard that I'm expecting. I've just given my child the ability to see if there's a middle ground we can both be comfortable with.
I'm feeling kind of good because I used the word non-negotiable last night with my 9-year-old. It's like, this is non-negotiable. You will wear your retainer. There we go. We're going to pause for just a few minutes. Before we do, we need to thank Electric Fountain Brewing Company here in Quincy, who gave us this place to do this interview, so we appreciate that. And we'll be back more with Debbie Reed right after this.
It has become one of the premier high school basketball showcases in America, and it returns here to historic Blue Devil Gym January 24th and 25th. The Quincy Shootout, 2 days, 15 games, 17 teams, including national powerhouses from across the land and some of the best future college basketball players you will ever see. It's the Quincy Shootout, proudly presented by Knox & Trucking and KHQA.
Hi, this is Andy Douglas, head coach at Quincy High School, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Quincy Shootout.
And we're back with ChadderBox Live, again coming to you live on Facebook from Electric Fountain Brewing Company, talking to Debbie Reed, the president and CEO of Chaddock and a co-author of the book, Raising the Challenging Child. We also need to open up, we have comments. The beauty thing of this being a Facebook Live is people, if they have questions for Debbie,
absolutely,
or myself, but I would direct them more at Debbie for something like this, then please chime in and let us know. We've got somebody monitoring the comments, and they'll shout out a question and we'll get it answered for you. So we have talked about toddlers, we've talked about teenagers. Kind of lost my train of thought there, but at what point, I'm going to scrap that question. How long did this take to do some research? You
know, we've been doing the research at Chaddock for years. We have taken the latest information in brain science, evidence-based practice of what has worked through a whole host of different specialty areas, trauma and attachment, early childhood development. And so we have been researching this book for years and years and years. We've been testing the lessons in here for years and years and years with the families we work with every day. The actual writing process took well over 3.5 years. Wow. It is a lengthy process. You know, you get an agent, you find a publisher, but throughout it all, I think as we wrote these lessons, we became more and more convinced that this was really a way to extend our mission reach. Because again, many of us are parents. We know that it's like, okay, I have all these resources, and yet right now I have no clue what to do with this situation. Part of that is because we parent the way that we were parented, right, and we parent based on our own experiences and what we're bringing in that moment. You know, when you've had a really bad day and your child comes home, you might respond a little differently than if you had just had a fabulous day and everyone was well rested and was well fed. You know, one of the things that we talk about in the book is to think about the word halt. You know, it's not good to really press and dig your heels in when people are hungry, angry,
or angry.
Right, you know, or lonely or tired. And so really thinking about what's going on underneath the behavior. You know, if my child came in and slammed the door and said something snarky to their little brother, I can either get upset with them for that behavior, or I can step back and say, what went on in their day that would cause them to act like that. And if I respond to that, I've made a deposit in the relationship bank because I've seen what is really going on. I can address the core issue, because if I don't, it's going to keep popping up.
Sure.
Now, at the end of that, I can still say, okay, and you need to go back and apologize to your brother, because it is not okay to talk to him like that. But if I get upset at the behavior instead of what's going on underneath the behavior, everyone gets frustrated. And so to just take a moment, or for yourself, you know, if you maybe are a little short with your child, to stop and go, okay, you know what? I had a really bad day. I think I need to take 5 minutes just to catch my breath, and we'll come back and address this, but I want to be my best when we do, and I just need a little space here. That's totally okay for you as a parent. It teaches your child that it's okay to take a step back, and the issue is going to take much less time to solve, because you aren't all going to be in that fight, flight, freeze, reactive part of your brain. You're going to be in the thinking part of your brain. You're going to be your wisest, kindest self, which is what we always want to bring to our kids.
And I think it's important in learning to parent and everything that to show that you, as a parent, can be wrong.
Absolutely.
I've said to my kids, we just had a conversation last weekend. I'm really good at holding grudges, and my wife and I were discussing in the car, and the kids in the back seat, and they're like, "What's a grudge?" So we tell them, and we kind of joke about how Dad does it, and I'm like, "Hey, if you're good at something, you should do it." And my wife leaves the car, and I tell my kids, I'm like, "To be honest with you, kids, this is the least favorite quality of myself, is holding grudges. So don't do that." But I think it's showing that you're vulnerable too. You're
Absolutely.
not perfect. Your learning is
one of the 30 lessons is apologize when you're wrong. If our kids don't learn how to apologize and repair a relationship from us, where are they going to learn that?
Exactly.
And so it makes it okay for our kids to reflect on their behavior and come back and say, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean, you know, those words that I said. How many parents have had a teenager say, I hate you? Well, if you have modeled what it means to come back and say, I'm really sorry. I did not mean that to sound the way it came across, then your child is more likely to do that too. And so, yes, we're trying to build responsible kids in our relationship with them. We're also training them how to have productive.
KHQA is working for you, bringing you the big story on air, online, and on social media.
Flames coming out the windows, so it had to have been within minutes.
We have the big story when it happens. Bringing you the information you need to stay informed. We are focused on your community. We're focused on what matters to you. That's how KHQA is working for you.
It has become one of the premier high school basketball showcases in America, and it returns here to historic Blue Devil Gym January 24th and 25th. The Quincy Shootout, 2 days, 15 games, 17 teams, including national powerhouses from across the land and some of the best future college basketball players you will ever see. It's the Quincy Shootout, proudly presented by Knox & Trucking and KHQA.
Hi, this is Andy Douglas, head coach at Quincy High School, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Quincy Shootout.
Have a free download. It's a study guide for Christian.
We're back with Debbie Reed, and we were just talking about how to get the book, Raising the Challenging Child, and you just said you have a download.
We do. The book is available from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, ChristianBook.com. Our local booksellers, our local libraries all have the book available. And so they're trying to provide as many ways as possible for people to access the book and the information. We also have a free study guide for Christian parents that corresponds with all the lessons in the book. So there are, how that connects with biblical teachings, and then also has some questions for reflection that maybe in a Bible study or small group can be discussed. To get that, you can go to the book website, which is raisingthechallengingchild.com, And again, that's a free download. It's an 8-week study guide. So for some folks, that might be a nice supplement to the book. And so we also are having several events locally and really throughout the state and larger region and country where either Karen or I will be at the event. The local ones, I will be there to help sign the book. So we have some coming up in the next month or so at Vermont Street United Methodist Church and St. Peter's Church. And so we are really looking at trying to find as many ways as possible to get this book in the hands of folks that might find it very helpful.
Sure. And those events, you can find them on the ChadderBox Facebook page. I was looking at them today, and there's a nice graphic that shows when and where.
Absolutely.
Times and everything, because I know you can't be expected to know all of that in your head. Let's see. What else do we need to talk about this? We talked about the bank and having withdrawals and deposits. What's another lesson we can talk about?
You know, we talked about looking for what's going on underneath the behavior. One of the really big ones that I think is great for parents to think through and have an awareness of is when you increase structure, you must increase nurture. Okay. You know, so often, so structure, like the rules, the guidance, those things that help our kids' lives feel safe and predictable. You know, we might think kids push back against structure, but that actually is very comforting to them to know what the rules are, as long as there aren't too many, but have some structure. Nurture is that love, the support, the guidance, the kind words that make them feel valued and loved, and also makes it easier for the structure. So often when our kids misbehave, we increase structure, we increase structure, we increase structure. In a lot of cases, if we just add nurture, those issues will take care of themselves. We often also tend to, as a parent, tend to skew more toward structure or more toward nurture. So think about your natural inclinations. Okay, if you're a strong nurture person, you might have to think more specifically about where do I need to put some structure in. Or if you're a high structure person, where can I insert some more nurture to really make the relationship easier for everyone?
Are there tips about doing that?
There absolutely are tips, you know, and some of them are very surprising. You know, if you have an overly controlling child, you know, maybe what that child really needs is a bit more structure. But if you have a child that acts overly mature, and I've got, you know, again, looking at that balance point. So there's tables throughout every chapter of the book. Maybe you've tried this, instead try this.
Okay.
Not that anyone has done it wrong, but just to say, you know what, if that's not going the way you want, consider trying something a little different. And some of them are a very slight change. You know, say it without no, where, you know, a child will say, hey, can I go outside? No, you can't go outside. You have to finish your homework. Okay, no, instantly brings up resistance. What about if you said, you know what, I know you want to go outside, and you can't as soon as you finish your homework.
Okay.
You've given the same message, but you haven't gotten that resistance. And you would be surprised at how often a kid goes, okay, because you haven't hit. You can say it without saying no. And the difference in the reaction from your child is surprisingly positive.
And it might not be the first time.
Absolutely.
You know, when you say try, don't just try and give up. You got to give it a couple of times. Earlier in the interview, you said you tend to parent how you were parented.
Yes.
Not everybody lives in a two-parent home.
Right.
And I'll throw myself out for an example. I had two loving parents, so they parented me my way. So I passed that on to my kids. My wife was the same way. She had two parents who parented her. We parent pretty close together. But not everybody does. So if you have two people who have been parented by two other people who are parented by two other people and two other people, you see where that's going. How do you come together on that common page so you as a parent team get to that child effectively? You
know, I think it's real easy in the stress of the moment when someone's parenting differently than you to, you know, start pointing the fingers and you to really be reflective on what am I bringing to this relationship? What are my experiences, and so that you can have a conversation with your spouse about that and how to find the balance. You know, it's not uncommon for one parent to be a little heavier on structure and the other heavier on nurture. Well, if you're all okay with that, as long as the child gets that balance, it's okay. But to really have that conversation with your spouse, that also models for your child. When you're coming from a different perspective with someone, can you sit down for the benefit of your child and your relationship as a set of parents? Whether your parents who are married, whether your parents who are divorced or separated, what's okay and what's not. Having that conversation up front can make a huge difference for the entire family unit, because nothing happens in isolation, right? It is a whole dance between all the members of the family. And if you change one step in your dance, it can really positively impact the whole.
It's a great analogy. Caitlin, do we have any questions? Okay. I had a question, so I said that. Give me just a second. Again, it's fun with the live stuff. Had it. It was about the two parents together. Oh, multiple kids.
Yes.
So whether you have 2 children, 8 children, whatever, every child is different.
Absolutely.
How do you go about using the bank analogy of going, okay, child A, I have to do this because he or she requires more withdrawals or deposits, where child 3 or 4 is different, but they see this child is treated differently with maybe it's a reward system or something that gets them because that's how they're wired, that's how they work. And then the other kid or kids are over here like, oh, wait a minute, just because I'm better behaved or good, I don't get that kind of attention.
You really have to be individualized, but look at the effect of the entire family. Sometimes kids get the good child and the challenging child, and the good child may have a lot of feelings going on underneath about what's happening. And so to really look at each child as an individual, and the more you've been making deposits in that relationship bank and understanding your individual child, you can cater your response to me, because whether you want to or not, each child is going to respond differently to what's going on. And the more that you can recognize, even something of, maybe you have a child that has been ill, and so a lot of a parent's attention has been drawn to that child. To have the conversation with the other child and say, you know what, I know a lot of time's been spent with this child. I'm wondering how that feels to you. You've made a deposit because you've recognized that child may have some feelings about it, and you have a chance to hear things from their perspective, and then you can respond accordingly. These are lessons. This is not do this, then do this, then do this, because every parent brings skills and experiences, and every child responds differently. But some guiding principles can be very helpful in the process.
And kids are bright. Once they get to the school age and stuff, and I love having conversations, and we do this in my house where we sit and we talk, and it's okay to, again, be vulnerable as a parent, but letting your child, how was your day? Oh, it was good. Okay, well, let's get more specific.
Right.
I love that open communication, getting down to what may be bothering that particular child, because it's going to be different.
A curiosity is a great thing for a parent. I wonder if child says, well, I don't know. Well, I wonder if it made you feel this way. Then they can say, respond to how it meant. So be curious. Help me understand what you're trying to accomplish here. And again, respecting them as a child. You're still in charge.
Respect.
You're still the leader as a parent. We're not at all saying to abdicate your responsibility. That brings a whole nother set of problems. But to really set the structure and then honor your child. Respect them, listen to them, and there are just a lot of preemptive things that you can do to make it go better. One of the phrases we joke about is every 2 hours feed and water the kids. Because, think about yourself. When you're hungry, are you in your best frame of mind? Thirsty is a big one because our stomach doesn't growl when we're thirsty.
Right.
But when kids are thirsty, it can impact their response. And so some very if you're going to go after work to the grocery store with your child who's tired from being at school or daycare all day, do you think taking a few minutes to maybe have a snack, to give them a drink, maybe give them, if it's a toddler, hey, can you find 3 green things in this aisle? all of those things you can do preemptively to keep that meltdown from happening. And it takes far less time to do that than to deal with the meltdown.
Absolutely, I agree. And I saw something just last night on Facebook about when you come home from work and you see your family, whether it's your spouse or your kids, have a smile on your face. Even if you've had the worst day, because that initial, it's almost like the dog. When the dog comes to greet you at the door, you know, it's like you're their whole world. They're part of yours.
Absolutely.
But with the family, it's like if you come in with a smile on your face, you're setting the tone for that evening. Even again, if you've had a bad day. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with the book?
Well, we could talk all day about it.
Sure, absolutely.
But I just encourage people, don't be dissuaded thinking, well, my child isn't a challenging child, so that book's not for me. It is really a guide for trying to preempt those challenging moments that are hard on everybody. And can really undermine the very best that you want to bring to your kids. So I hope people will check it out. The feedback so far has been great from people. And again, we just see this as a way to, we're all about kids and families. I don't want to wait till they're to the point where they need some of the specialized services we offer. If we can help them on the front end, then that's a big part of our mission as well.
Very cool. Well, Debbie, thanks so much for doing this with us. Thanks for writing the book. I can't wait to read it. And thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Chad Douglas with ChadderBox Live. Have a great weekend.